Hello friends. First of all, Java itself is considered to be a platform independent programming language. The platform means any different operating system, different processor. So what happens is you try to create some coding, and then that coding has to be processed into um, uh, processed by the processor. So these processor are certainly reserved with doing some only limited set of activities. So previously, when you have legacy operating systems, legacies, these programming languages, when you write, these were not defined for these processors to handle. So you need to have some form of licensed in order to even process them. So the processor are needed to be having some sort of license in order to process your code. So what the Java brought it up is that it is platform independent, meaning you have a virtual machine, JVM, which is called. It is going to work as any virtual machine to in order to compile your code and then run. So what it does is it does not rely on to what operating system it is being executed. So you could basically execute it into any operating system, so which is why it is called platform independent. It is not dependent into Microsoft operating system, or it is not dependent onto Macintosh or Linux, Unix. Anywhere you can execute Java program. Next thing on the Java is it is open source. Anywhere anybody can install Java application, Java softwares. So uh, and then you can start coding. There's no licensing needed. Java is totally free, even at the corporate level. You don't have to pay anything for Java. When we go further onto the Java and their components, we will see some sort of questions that are frequently asked for any basic Java or core Java related questionnaires. One of the major asked questions is also what we just talked about. Why is it Java so important? That's what you should be answering. And next thing is what is object-based application. So object-based application is some Java application whose design is basically based on declaring classes, creating objects for those classes, and also designing some interactions between such objects. So when we talked about this objects stuff, these all of these things are basically stored into some template or some container. These containers are called classes. So we're going to talk some about the classes, what classes do, and how the classes makes more sense into Java. So the classes are again the container. So if you see here into this little thing, this consider this as a classes. This as a class. Then what the classes could have? Classes could have something called class member, variables or methods. It could have something called class member variables or methods, or it could also have something called instance variables. It could also have something called local variables. It could also have something called method. Static and non-static methods, right? And then it could also have something called constructors, right? So I'll just mark that etc, etc. So these are basically the component of the classes. So class is going to handle each of these things inside this one container. The classes into Java is where you would write all of your code. Before you start writing any code, you would have to first create the classes. Inside the classes, where we just talked about the container, that's where we would work on defining or writing codes, or declaring some methods, defining the methods, or declaring some variables, working with those variables, or declaring some constructors, and all of these sort of things. That everything happens inside these classes. These classes are solely dependent onto Java, and these classes are called by some form of name, and those are the names that is the classes being represented as. So those names have to be stored as .java extension. That's how the compiler will know these are the Java classes that they have to compile the codes with. Okay. I think let's go with some of the exercise, so that will show you what exactly I'm talking about. Basically, I'm kind of middle of defining this video, right? Uploading this video, so that I already have the pretty good set of the project framework set up. But for this video, you don't worry on what you can see here behind the scene. Basically, you will have some new project set up where you would have nothing. It would be just blank. In order to do some new project setup, or setting up, installing Java, setting up Eclipse, all these things, I have another video that will have more detail on installing and setting up Java to your machine. So let's go with writing classes, how you would start the classes writing. So first of all, you would have like this label tier, and then you would have this package. Inside this folder, you would create some packages. So the packages are going to be in this like yellow form, and where you would have, which means it is not empty, it has some values inside. Everywhere you see this yellow means it's loaded already. I'm going to create a new class. So if I need to create any class, I will have to do right click here, new class. There are multiple options. If you need to create a package, you would click package. The classes should be inside the package. If you don't create a package, it will create one called default. So it's better practice that you don't create classes without having any package. So if you want to create some classes, you have to do right click onto the package, and then create a class, right? So it's a two-step process. And then when I click there, you will see this form of some dialog box that appears here. This means the source folder, and then this means what package it is going to. This means the name of the class that I would be creating to. The best convention is writing the class name into the capital letter first, so, and then go with the camel case. So first of all, I can just write demo day 1 for beginners. So like this, if you see here, I say demo day 1 for beginners. So B, F, O, all of these are capital, meaning every single every different word that are being defined is in a capital, so that it is going to be much easier. So that is basically the Java convention in order to write any classes. So every different word you start with a capital letter, even the first word, and that's how you would write any classes into Java. Rest of them you can just leave it alone, and you don't have to. Next thing, you can simply click here so that it will bring the public static void main. That statement, it will come itself. Okay. Once you hit finish, it will start with a new class. Let it load. So once you load, this method is already there. So this is the commented line. So this is how these classes would be. This is exactly as I just defined, and you will see the package. It is saying com.my.basics of Java. This is my package name exactly as it is appears. Other thing you need to know is Java is case sensitive, so which means it has to be exactly same case, uppercase, lowercase. You have to maintain them. Okay. You would write something with a small letter public. Public means it is accessible from anywhere in the project. Class means the class name. It identifies that this thing is a class name, which is demo day one beginners is a class name. This is static main method, which is always having the main. Every time the methods inside Java would have this parenthesis, and if it requires any parameter, then you would have to define those argument here. In this case, it is looking for string arrays argument. You don't have to define anything in this. It is just there for default, or you can pass multiple classes for that. After that, if I need to write anything, every time if it has a static in front of void or any return type, that is by default going to be the class member variables. Class member variables means the compiler will read that at the first time. Every statics, every class members are going to be read at the first. Rule number 1. Rule number 2 is static method. If the method is static, then everything inside that method is also static. You cannot use non-static variables in front of the methods. Variables in Java are basically the identifier that represents the relative that represents the value for certain thing, right? So say string A is equal to dog, then A is going to represent as a dog. So those are called variables. You can also define variables with the static keyword, and then it would be part of the class member variable. Every time there is static not defined, those are defaulted to non-static member, which are called non-class members. Non-class members cannot be directly called inside the main method. Okay. So next thing here is that when you have a class starts with these parentheses here, this curly braces here to here. This whole section is where you have to work with. You cannot write anything outside of this, it will just error out. Everything you have to define, it has to be inside. Just exactly like the class appears, exactly appears the method. Method also have the similar curly braces. You cannot write method inside method, like you cannot write public method inside method. It is unacceptable. It is not good. A compiler will throw the error, and then also it is just not a good practice. It will just show the error. You cannot do this. Okay, so let me remove this. If I need to define another method inside the Java, I'll have to finish this first curly braces, then I'll have to write the another line. anything I need to define inside will be totally on different, and so it will be now part of this method. So this both of this method has a static in front of the void. Static means it's a class member. If I remove this word as a static, then this is automatically considered to be non-class members, which means if you have to do anything with this method inside the main method, eventually if you want to trigger this application to run, the main method should be calling that with the object. That is why everything in Java is defined into the representation of the objects. You'd be declaring objects all the time. That's why it is called object-based application. So here I'm going to just write very quick thing here. I would say int a equals 5. Int a equals 5 here. A is the variable that represents the 5. I can also write here b equals 10. I'll write another one. Int c equals 20. So if you see here, there are three different ways I'm defining these variables. First thing is int a equals 5, that is inside the method itself. Nobody beside this method would know the a is ever defined. If I write a here, it will not show me error because this class does not know this is ever defined. Okay, I cannot undefine this. It cannot read this because it said okay, that is not right. Okay, I cannot do that. So here if you see, this is a static variable. This is called static int b. You can just call b here directly. You can call b directly here and redefine again, so this will be overwritten. Then this b is already defined, but here c is also defined the same way, only different is c does not have static. Okay, let's try to call c inside the static method and see what happens. Okay, c equals 22. Then it will say okay, please convert that into static. If you see here, hover here over, okay, if you see here it says cannot make the static variable, right? So the error says cannot make a static reference to the non-static field. So this is non-static, you cannot reprint that. But here if you bring that here, that has no problem because this is also non-static, it can be here. So this c is an instance variable, a equals local variable because it is only local to the method, b can be used everywhere, that's why it is a static variable, that's a class member. B equals 11 here. Okay, there's no problem having static variable inside the local variable, a local method or non-static method, but non-static can never go into a static variable, a static method. Okay, so this is the method, these are the variables. Variables is basically representation of certain values. Let's say if I want to run this program and just write down something, I will say I would write system.out.println. That is basically telling that please print me whatever value comes there into the console here. Okay, so now I wanted to just simply add these three values. C is 20 there, I'm writing that to 22. a is equal to 5, a is never defined, so a value remains 5, b value is 11 here, but the b is 10 there, so it is going to override that. So what happens, my final value is b equals 11, so it is going to replace with the 11, a replaces with the 5, and 22 is the c. So for now these values are not used because those are overwritten here, and all I'm doing is adding these three values. Plus is going to add for any integer. Integer is basically called like a numeric values. So in order to run for me this application, I will have to call this method inside the main method, because compiler would only look for the main methods. Okay, so I will say class name demo for d equals new demo for. Okay, so this is basically called the instantiation. So which means you are creating the object as a bd. Bd is a variable object for that is going to represent me another object for this class. So it is going to create a new class for me with the name called bd. New class means it is not going to create a new class here, but that is representing as an object. Okay, that's why it's called object based application. Now if I need to run this method, I can call that with the variable bd. So all I need to do is just write the exactly same thing, but then it has to end with the semicolon. Okay, so that is what I will do here at the moment. And if I need to now run this application, that's just compiling. So if I need to run now this application, I can simply right click here, run as Java application. So now you see the total came 38. 38 means 22, 11, 22 and 5 is 27, 28, 38. So this is going to calculate it based on the local variables output. Okay, so basically this is one part that you wanted to understand what the class is and what did the container it have. Okay, I think this has been very helpful for you to understand what the basics of classes into Java and how do we create them. We will talk about other videos on to more other ways what we can do and tweak with Java applications and help you understand more. So please continue to watch my videos, and please, if you would like to support my channel, please hit the subscribe button. Please subscribe my channel and like and share my videos. Thank you very much for watching this video.